coffee, chills, and whispers in the dark.
Hey besties, welcome to Brewja Coffee Hour podcast, where we blend spooky stories, true crime, legends, and haunted lattes. I'm your host, Dannie Oliveros, your cafecito loving bruja, with a soft spot for ghost stories and a really strong loving espresso pool. If you're new here, I'm glad you found us. And if you're returning, you already know the vibes. A quick little update before we get into it. We are no longer doing number seasons. From now on, it's all about spooky drops. Theme little mini series, and that comes and goes, and no rules, just creepy energy and curated drinks and vibes you can sip on. And I do want to apologize for the week that I didn't post because unfortunately my mother, she broke her wrist, so I was taking care of her, so she's going to be off for the whole summer. So I am apologizing in advance if my episodes would become shorter, because I do have to, my mom does have to depend on all of us, but mostly me because I'm the closest one. So yeah. And today we are kicking off our Summerween drop with a Curse classic. And this is Friday the 13th Files. A quick little update before we get into it. We are no longer doing number seasons. From now on, it's all about spooky drops. Theme little mini series, and that comes and goes, and no rules, just creepy energy and curated drinks and vibes you can sip on. And I do want to apologize for the week that I didn't post because unfortunately my mother, she broke her wrist, so I was taking care of her, so she's going to be off for the whole summer. So I am apologizing in advance if my episodes would become shorter, because I do have to, my mom does have to depend on all of us, but mostly me because I'm the closest one. So yeah. And today we are kicking off our Summerween drop with a Curse classic. And this is Friday the 13th Files. Let's start with the best kind of warning sign: caffeine. Today's drink is the Campfire Slasher S'mores Brew. And she's sweet, she's smoky, she's a little dangerous. I made mine with the ice with mocha, with vanilla syrup. I know. And toasted marshmallow on top of the foam. And with graham crackers around the rim and the chocolate rim. And I use a mini blowtorch to toast it, because we're not doing soft horror energy this summer. And if you're feeling a little extra dramatic, add like that cracker rim and a couple other mini marshmallows if you want to perfect your sipping while telling ghost stories or surviving one. Tag me if you make it on our Brewja podcast at any social media, or hashtag Brewja Coffee Hour, and let me know if the final girl energy or it's your first one in. So here's the thing about Friday the 13th. Even if you don't believe in bad luck, there's something about the date that feels off. And like your latte tastes a little too sweet, or the streetlights flickers while you're walking by, or it's probably nothing, but also maybe it's not. Let's get why this date is has such a bad and spooky reputation. First up, the number 13. It's been labeled the outcast of numbers for centuries. In Christianity, Judas, the betrayer, was the 13th guest at the Last Supper. And we know how that ended. And in Norse mythology, Loki crashed a dinner party as the 13th dinner guest. And things went downhill fast. So yeah, 13 has been starting drama since the calendars were even cute. Now let's talk about Friday. So already seen as an unlucky way before it got paired up with the 13th. Some say that it is the day that Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit. Others say it's the day of the crucifixion. Either way, it's always a moody little cloud over it. Sometimes, not all the time. Put those two together and you get, I can't pronounce this word, but I think it's called presbyterophobia. Sorry if I butchered that. It is literally called the fear of Friday the 13th. 10 points if anyone can say that without tripping like I did. And here's a twist that I love. That in Mexico, there are many parts, and also there are many parts in Latin America, that it's not Friday of the 13th that they fear. It's Martes 13, or Tuesday the 13th. There's even a saying, en martes ni te cases, ni te embarques, ni te de tu casa te partes. Translation, on Tuesday the 13th, don't get married, don't go on a trip, don't even leave your house. Iconic, practical, terrifying. So whether it's Tuesday or Friday, the number 13 has people shook across cultures. And we're not talking about just a handful of people avoiding it. We're talking about tens of millions of just who won't book weddings or their surgeries or even do their hair appointments today on those days. And honestly, I respect the commitment. So you'll see it everywhere. Elevators skipping the 13th floor, hotel rooms without the room 13, even airlines skipping a row 13 entirely. Like, okay, that's still a row, bestie. Whether you think it's silly or secretly avoiding walking under ladders like I do, I actually do even at work. Friday the 13th has made its mark. But if superstition isn't enough to spook you, let me remind you of a certain masked menace who made this date iconic in horror history.
Okay, besties, take a second to refill your cafecito, maybe light a candle, and get comfy, because the next part is where the real creeps come in.
Let's talk about the horror icon, who's basically trademark Friday the 13th. Jason Voorhees. Hockey mask, machete, or machete, but I say machete. Mommy issues, the blueprint. So, but the plot of Jason wasn't even the killer in the beginning, in the first movie. Friday the 13th, 1980, starts with Camp Crystal Lake and a bunch of counselors getting picked off, but it's not Jason, it's his mom, Pamela. And she's grieving, she's pissed, and honestly, she's giving don't mess with mom's rage energy. Pamela Voorhees becomes horror original overprotective mom, and the twist is it's her that changed everything. But the minute Jason steps into the spotlight in part 2 of the movie franchise, takes on a whole new life. And by part 3, he puts on a hockey mask and boom, he becomes the face of one of America's favorite slashers, especially from the 80s. And now here's where we go deeper. Slashers exploded in the 80s because they reflected real anxieties and isolation, violence, punishment, and even purity culture. They were basically mortalities to play with blood. If you had sex, did drugs, or say, I'll be right back, guess what? You were basically out. You were dead. You're gone.
By in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no! Big no!
I'm a dead man.
Popcorn. Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. No, the sin factor. It's a sin. It's an extension of number 1. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
You see, you push the laws and you end up dead.
Enters the final girl. Usually quiet, observant, doesn't party. She's the one who survives. Not because she's better, but because she watches, listens, and adapts. And Friday the 13th didn't invent this trope, but it's perfect. It's perfected. So then, like, franchise like Scream flipped it and played it with it and turned it into a meta commentary. And here's the tea. Critics hated Friday the 13th when it first came out. They said it was trashy, gory, predictable, but audience ate it up. It made $60 million in the office box on a $500,000 budget. Because people wanted horror, they wanted something they could scream at, laugh at, and still feel like they could understand the rules. Jason was the rules. He turned a summer camp that supposedly was supposed to be a fun, innocent, nostalgic thing into a nightmare. He made cabins creepy, lakes suspicious, and honestly, he made a hockey mask iconic. And like, imagine, that's so terrifying that you make sports equipment scary. That's power. So yeah, Jason might not talk, but he did say a lot. We talked about the superstition, we talked about Jason, but horror doesn't just live in movies. Sometimes the creepiest stories are the ones that don't have a clear ending or an explanation. In these cases, Reddit threads and campfire style stories that happened on or around Friday the 13th. Whether they are unconscious, folklore, or something else entirely, I'll let you decide. We have our case 1, the vanishing tent in Colorado, 1996. A family of 5, mom, dad, and 3 kids, went camping for a weekend in Roosevelt National Forest, just outside Estes Parks. Sorry if I said that wrong. They had set up, like they always use, 1 tent for the parents, 1 for the kids, and the 3rd, a smaller tent for gear and supplies. They were experienced campers, and this site was that the dad has been visiting since he was a teenager, so they are very familiar with this site. And then one early Friday the 13th morning, just before sunrise, the dad steps out of his tent and immediately noticed something was off. The supply tent was gone. Not collapsed, not torn, not moved a few feet away, completely gone. They figured the wind had probably pulled it away until they realized the weather was completely still the night before. no wind, no rain, no storm, and importantly, no sound. I don't believe the sound part because you probably hear crickets and stuff, but it's just how the story goes. They started looking around the trees, and that's when they found something even weirder. About 30 feet into the forest, they found their gear, cooler, food bin, camp stove, all removed from the tent and stacked in a perfectly neat pile. It looked intentional, like someone had quietly unzipped the tent and taken contents and arranged them with a purpose. No signs of a struggle or drag marks or footprints. Park rangers later told them that it was probably a prank, maybe some teenagers messing around. But the family swore they hadn't heard anything. No movement, no laughter, not even a zipper, just silence. They left that morning and never came back to camp at the spot ever again. Case 2. The scream at 1:13 a.m., Northern California, 2003. A solo backpacker, 27-year-old, was hiking the Gloss Coast Trail, a remote rugged stretch of the shoreline along Northern California, where the forest meets the ocean. He brought a journal, an old school mini recorder to document the trip. It was his third night on the trail. He pitched his tent at a near tree line and fell asleep to the sound of waves in the distance. Around 1:13 a.m., he woke up with a sound that describes as a scream that didn't belong to anything that was basically near him. So he said it didn't sound human. Probably La Llorona. But it also did not sound like an animal. He knew that it was guttural, low, layered, and what he could only describe as static. He froze, stayed inside his tent, and listened. At 2:13 a.m., the scream came again. Same pitch, same thing, same timing, but closer. Then again, 3:13, louder, sharper. He checked his device. The next morning, every file was blank on the recorder, except one, a 3-second clip of just static. And then at the very end, a whisper.
Don't come back.
He says he hiked out that same morning, cut his trip short, and hasn't gone camping alone ever since. Case 3. The Mirror Game, Ohio, 2011. 3 high school girls, 15, 16, and 16, were spending the night at one of their grandparents' cabin near Hocking Hills, Ohio. It was an old A-frame tucked into the woods, full of antiques, old rugs, and one very, very fogging-looking bathroom mirror. It was Friday the 13th, and of course, after watching horror movies all night long, they decided to try Bloody Mary. But they wanted to make it scarier. So they set up 13 tea-light candles, locked the doors, and stood together in front of the mirror at 1:13 a.m. They whispered her name 3 times. They waited. Nothing happened. They waited again, and nothing happened. A long crack had formed straight across the mirror. Not shattered, not splinted, just one clean fracture running through the center like a scar. And then the girl who had been standing in the middle suddenly went quiet. She told the other two, my reflection didn't blink before I did. They ended the sleepover early. The next morning, the mirror was replaced. But that girl, she says, till this day, she won't look at mirrors in the dark. And if she accidentally catches herself looking at herself in the reflection, after midnight, she turns immediately every single time. These stories aren't what you hear in a documentaries or a reading paper. They live in Reddit threads. They get passed down at sleepovers and whispers around the campfire. And just because they're hard to prove doesn't mean they don't linger. And starting this month, I'm launching a brand new segment. I'm calling it Creepy Cuentos pa la Bruja, where I read your spooky stories. So, your unlucky moments, haunted encounters, glitches in the matrix, paranormal abuelita sightings. If it gave you chills, I want to hear it. And if something creepy has ever happened to you, especially on Friday the 13th, send it in. There will be a link in my bio where you can submit your story. You can type it, drop a voice note. Well, I don't know if you'll be able to drop a voice note. I would say type it and spill the tea however you want to share. Because if there's one thing I've learned doing this podcast, some of the scariest stories are still out there and just been waiting to be told. And I want to share yours. I want to share your stories. So, before we wrap up, I've been keeping something in the shadows and it's almost ready to come to light. And I'm writing my first novel. I did mention it, I think, in my last episode. It's not done yet, but it's very close. But if you love haunted places, cursed families, and a story soaked in folklore, this one is for you. This story takes place in a forgotten hacienda in Colima, Mexico. A place where the walls remember everything and silence doesn't mean safety. And at the center, a woman trying to break free of her legacy she's never asked for at all, while something or someone keeps calling her back. It's eerie, it's personal, it's filled with ancestral echoes, and maybe, just maybe, a little blood in the floorboards. I'll be sharing some little sneak peeks here and there, not entirely, but I can tell you that the story is based on my mom. It's inspiration for my mom, so it's like a love letter to my mom in a creepy way, but she likes it. But because of the story, I've been waiting too long for it to be told, so it'll be worth it. And that's a wrap of this week's spooky drop of Brewja Coffee Hour. Your favorite haunted hangout where we sip something sweet and we dig a little on the creepy side and culturally chilled. And if you loved today's episode, don't forget to rate, review, and share it or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching and share it with someone who refuses to say Bloody Mary in the mirror, and you know which one it is. You can submit your story for our new segment, Creepy Cuentos pa la Bruja, using the link in my bio on any of my social media platforms. Whether it's a ghost, a glitch, and a weird dream that came true, I want to hear it. Now, before we sign off, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the protests and the violence that's happening in Los Angeles, and what was witnessed was heartbreaking. Try not to cry. Okay. No matter who you are, no human being should be treated with cruelty, papers or not. So we deserve safety, we deserve dignity, and we deserve to be seen as whole people. Always. Always. Even if you're born here. This show is about stories. But outside the podcast we're living through is real ones. And I hope we keep writing them with compassion. And I hope one day that this cruelty and racism ends one day. I know it's not, but it's just a wish. So take care of yourselves this weekend. Light a candle, hug someone you love, and if you hear something strange in the woods, maybe, just maybe, don't follow it. This is Brewja Coffee Hour. I'm Danny, and I'll see you on the next spooky drop. Bye, loves.